Hi, hope you're having a great day. You're watching JG Entertainment, and for this video, I'm going over Black Panther Wakanda's Forever's opening weekend box office, which is really crazy, and it took me a while to get this video out because I actually want to analyze it really deeply. So for this video, I'm going to give you all types of stats and everything. So if you want a full breakdown of the opening weekend for this movie, I'm going to give it to you right here, as well as a prediction for a second weekend drop and its overall box office. So yeah, let's get started. So the movie opened with a total of $181.4 million domestically, which is a really strong number. How strong of a number, you might be asking? Well, it's the biggest opening ever for November, so it's the biggest opening in November, as well as it's the third highest movie of the pandemic era after Multiverse of Madness and No Way Home opening weekend, and it's the 13th biggest opening weekend ever. 13th biggest opening weekend ever. That's really big. 8th biggest for the MCU, and that's really big. That's just incredible numbers right here. Like, that's extremely incredible. First of all, like I said, third highest of the pandemic era. That's just really nice. That's really incredible. Clearly, it's like one of those big movies, and we all know it's gonna be big, but it just shows that it was big and it's really good. So that's really awesome. It's not as big as the original opening weekend, as it's tracking 11% lower than the original opening weekend, but that's not like super big. It was still a holiday weekend whenever that movie came out. This movie is not coming out on a holiday weekend, and this movie's in November. That was in February, which I guess both of these months are kind of dead. But I think that February has like a higher chance of being better. However, the good thing about this movie is that it's gonna have basically 3 weeks for like a long time into Avatar: The Way of Water comes out, which I'm already talking about that in a little bit later, telling you about like the second weekend drop and how much I think it's gonna make overall in the box office. I'm talking about that in a little bit later. But yeah, the fact that it came out in November doesn't give it a huge boost, so it makes sense that it was a little bit lower than the original. And also, I think that it's just a passing of Chadwick Boseman kind of put some viewers like, oh, maybe I shouldn't watch this movie because it's not worth it. So it makes sense that would be the case. However, 11% is like from the original, which was a huge opening weekend. It's not terrible. Like, this is actually like really strong for this movie. So that's really great. It's also 4% under Multiverse of Madness. It's like very little under Multiverse of Madness, barely under it. And I would not be surprised if this movie ended up doing more money than Multiverse of Madness overall at the box office. We'll see, and we'll find out, especially with the second weekend drop and everything. But I would not be surprised if this movie was higher. Now, it was 25% over to Love and Thunder, which is the most recent horror movie, so that's great. 25% is a pretty strong percentage above Thor: Love and Thunder. So clearly this was a huge win for Marvel, beating Thor: Love and Thunder, the last Marvel movie, where I really had percentage, 25%, so they're like 1/4 higher, and staying right on the same numbers as Multiverse of Madness, and having dominating the top 3 open weekends of all time on the pandemic era, No Way Home, Multiverse of Madness, and this movie. So clearly this was a huge win for Marvel. However, it was also a really huge win for the director of this movie, Ryan Coogler. How exactly? Well, for starters, he's the first black director with 2 films on the top 15 openings of all time. So that's really crazy for him. That's really great for him. So that's really awesome and really representing the black community, which is really awesome. He's also the first solo director with back-to-back $180+ million debuts, which is amazing. That's really awesome. So that's great for him. That's really good. And his 4 films that he has directed have all fresh scores. How exactly? Well, his first film, which is called Fruit Table Station, has 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. Then Creed has 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. Then Black Panther 1 has 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. And the latest movie, which is this movie, Wakanda Forever, has an 84% on Rotten Tomatoes. So these are all really strong critic scores, all fresh, and that's just really amazing. That's really awesome for him. Clearly, this is like really great stuff for him. Like, this is an amazing huge win for Ryan Coogler, and we can definitely see why he signed up a huge contract for Disney, and how he's doing all these other things for Disney, including a Wakanda spin-off show that we're not exactly sure what it's about yet, but that has been confirmed. So that's really interesting. That's great for Ryan Coogler. Really excited to see what he does next. And even perhaps this huge delivery at the box office and at the critics might make him the director for Secret Wars. As the movie itself, Avengers: Secret Wars, does not have a director yet, or at least it hasn't been confirmed yet. So I could definitely see Ryan Coogler taking over for that spot, which I think would be super awesome. I think it would make an amazing movie. We'll see, but I can definitely see that. Okay, now let's move on to the demographics. How exactly did this movie do? As the first movie was huge for representation. It represented a bunch of communities, and that's why a bunch of minority communities that usually don't go to theaters actually ended up showing in big numbers for the movie. But what about this movie? How did it do in this movie? Well, for starters, 34% of the audience was black, so that's incredible. That's a really high number. That's a really high percentage. So clearly the community that this was going for, which is the black community, and the movie that means so much for them with the original movie, clearly they were brought back and they were presented and they were here to support it, which is super awesome. It's great that the black community has a movie that they can like really feel proud of, so that's just really awesome. Then 31% of the audience was Caucasian, which makes sense. They are the biggest audience in the United States, so it makes sense that they would be second highest, and that's really good. They still showed up. It's great that you're seeing like they're not like excluding the movie because it's like a bad community. No, they're still going there. It is a little bit weaker than the previous percentage for the original movie, but it's fine. It's still pretty strong for this movie. Then 25% of them were Latinos, which is great. Clearly, Namor did bring an audience to this movie, and that's awesome. The Latinos did end up showing up, and I thought it was really awesome. I saw a bunch of social media reaction over how they felt represented with Namor, and the actor Tano Huerta has been talking about how he wants to represent these community of Mexicanos and everything, and Latinos and everything, and I think it's working really well. I think it's going to work for this weekend, and I think it's going to keep working throughout the weekends as more people discover this and they just want to be represented, and that's really awesome. So that's great that 25% of the audience was Latinos, really strong numbers. Then Asian or other were 14%, so that's not like incredible numbers, but it's also not super low. It's actually surprisingly high compared to other movies, so that's pretty great. Clearly they did not have that much representation for Asian or other in this movie, but it's fine. I think it's still a huge number of people ended up showing up, so that's great. And all these stats are according to Hollywood Reporter, so clearly that's really awesome, and they are official, so that's great. Now, the male percentage of this movie, of the audience, was 52%. So 52% of the people that went to go see this movie was of the male figure, which is great. That's a really strong number. However, that also means that a bunch of women showed up, which is insane. This never usually happens for comic book movies. Usually they're like on the high, like 50s, maybe low 60 percentage, and then women's are like whatever's left. Here it's the opposite. Here it's like actually like almost even 50-50 split. Male is like a little bit higher, but it's almost the exact same. So that's really, really awesome, showing that this movie really did appeal to both genders, which is great. And clearly I think Story becoming Black Panther ended up working very well to its favor for female audience attraction. Alright, now let's talk about the word of mouth of this movie. How is it tracking word of mouth? Well, let's start with the RT score, or Rotten Tomato score, which came out before the movie came out, and it always affects ticket sales and everything. Now, what is the RT score? Well, the RT critic score is right now at an 84%. So it's really strong. It's not incredibly strong. It's not like in the 90s, like the original. So that kind of sucks. I would have really expected this movie to be over the 90, but it's fine. 84% is still really, really strong. It's still fresh, and it's still like on the high percentage. So that's really great. Now, the RT audience score is a 95%, which is like way up here, so that's really incredible. Audiences are clearly loving this movie, which is great. Fans are loving this, audiences are loving this, so 95% audience score is really, really strong for this movie, which is just super awesome. Now, what about Cinemascore? Well, this movie got a Cinemascore of an A, which is super, super strong. A is like really, really, really strong. It is below the original's A+, which is interesting to just note. The original got an A+, and however, that doesn't really matter because A+ is like the top tier. So for this movie to get an A, it's still like super, super strong. It's like really, really strong. It's like getting a 95 and 100 in the test. It's like they're both still really, really strong. So that's great for this movie. And it is higher than recent Marvel movies like Thor: Love and Thunder and Doctor Strange: Multiverse of Madness, which both got a B+. This is an A, so that's like a huge improvement over the past Marvel movies. However, No Way Home did get an A+, so it's like it is under No Way Home as well, but that's because No Way Home was like a fan service thing that everybody like walked out of the theater whenever they interviewed them. They were like, oh yeah, this is like the best movie, so that makes sense. And this movie, even though it's really sad and depressing and like it deals with a lot of tragedy, it's still an A, and that's just really, really strong for this movie. So clearly the word of mouth for this movie is amazing. It's really, really great, which I think is going to benefit a lot of the replayability, and also our second weekend drops and everything. It's just going to benefit a lot with this incredible word of mouth. But before I continue talking about word of mouth, let's go over the overseas box office. Now, the movie made $150.3 million overseas or internationally, which is really, really strong as well. The biggest overseas markets were led by the UK with 15 million, followed by France with 13.7 million, among other markets like Mexico, which was third place in this market race with a $12.8 million box office. So that's pretty good. And like I said, Latinos are really showing up, and the actor Tano Huerta being the villain and being Mexicano and everything is really boosting this movie over there as well. In fact, I even saw a Mural, which I'll leave right here, that was put in Mexico, which is just awesome to see how they're proud of this representation. So that's really cool. I think that's really awesome. And I do fully expect that these numbers are going to continue to like not decrease, but actually hold on pretty well, especially in Mexico, due to the representation. So that's great. This is also the highest opening ever in Nigeria, which is super, super awesome. And this movie also really brought back the box office of South Korea, which just has been really much dead for the past blockbusters. So the fact that this movie was able to bring it back is really awesome, showing that part of the market still has some really strong box office over it. However, this movie is still 5% less than the original overseas, but that's really good for this movie because this movie did not open in China, and it probably will not open in China as the first movie did open in China. So the fact that this movie was only 5% under is like incredible. So it's like still tracking super strong. So that's really great. So the combined opening weekend box office, including the international box office and the domestic box office, combines to $330.7 million of an opening weekend, which is just super strong. How strong is this exactly? Well, for comparison, it's literally almost the box office and the total box office that Black Adam has made as of right now. So that's really strong for this movie. The movie clearly had a huge opening weekend, and it's just gonna keep making a lot more money. So that's great. And the movie does have a budget of $250 million, which is like expensive. And usually you want to like double your budget or get close to like double and like a little bit extra just to make some profit. And I think this movie's definitely gonna make it. Usually whenever the opening weekend lands, it's usually gonna make around at least double what the opening weekend was. So I definitely think this movie has a strong chance of definitely beating that budget by a lot and getting a bunch more money. So yeah, this movie's definitely gonna be profitable and everything compared to like Thor: Love and Thunder, which was like super close to not being profitable and everything. This movie's gonna be super strong. So that's great. This is really awesome for this movie. The box office itself right now is really strong for this movie. And yeah, so now let's talk about the second weekend holds. Is it going to hold for a second weekend? Is it going to have a strong second weekend? Because past horror movies or recent horror movies like Multiverse of Madness had a huge drop of, I think it was 69%, and so did Thor: Love and Thunder had a huge second weekend drop despite their big opening weekends. Is that going to be the case with this movie? Well, in a poll conducted by Variety, that 38% of the people say that they plan to see this movie again, which is incredibly strong. It's super rare for 38% of people to say that. So clearly the audiences are living this and they want to experience this movie again in the theaters. So that's really awesome. So this is a good sign for the second weekend. And then as we discussed, the word of mouth for this movie is just insane. It has an A on Cinemascore. The critic scores is great, but the RT audience score is even better. So when people talk to their friends about it, they're gonna be like, "Oh yeah, this movie's great. You should go check it out," which I think is really awesome. So I think the word of mouth over here is gonna be incredible. So I definitely think that the second weekend drop for this movie is going to be on the 50s, and I think it's going to be on the either high 50s or low 50s. I think it's going to be somewhere in the 50s. I do not think it's going to cross 60 at all, which is really good for a movie that opened this big. If it can stay in the 50% drops, I think it's going to be like really awesome for this movie. So yeah, I definitely expect that, and I expect this movie to dominate the box office and to Avatar: The Way of the Water comes out, as it literally has no competition. There is a Disney animation movie, The Strange World, but there's like zero hype for that movie right now. So I fully expect the movie to dominate for like almost a whole month until Avatar: The Way of the Water comes out, which is great for this movie. This movie has so much time to make as much money as possible. You know, you might be like in 2 weeks, what movie should I go watch? You're gonna be like, let's just go watch Black Panther again, and then you go watch Black Panther again, and it makes more money and more money. So yeah, this movie's gonna have some huge box office numbers, and I think that this movie has a pretty strong chance of getting closer to like Multiverse of Madness, which it was like Multiverse of Madness was just like a smidge under $1 billion. I think this movie could get $1 billion. I think it can cross it just barely. I don't think it's gonna be like a huge thing, but I think it will be able to cross the $1 billion mark. Hopefully, it really depends on the second weekend drop. But according to the word of mouth and the poll that Variety has launched and everything, I think this movie can do it, and especially with its overrepresentation of minorities, I think that more people than usual are gonna show up to these movies. So yeah, I fully expect this movie to be hitting $1 billion. Hopefully, it's going to be a really close call, but hopefully. And I think that's going to be super awesome because it's really rare to get movies over $1 billion. Now, I think only Jurassic World, Top Gun Maverick, and No Way Home have done it in the pandemic era. So I think this movie could be the next movie in the pandemic era to do it, which would be awesome. So yeah, that's my box office breakdown for the Wakanda Forever opening weekend. Tell me what you think about it down in the comments. Are you happy with this? Are you not happy with this? What do you think it's going to make for its total box office? I'm very curious. Tell me that down in the comments, as well as what do you think about it? Tell me that also down in the comments. As well as please leave a like and enjoy this video. It will be very helpful. So please leave a like and subscribe for all more content, including more box office breakdowns. And I'm working on 2 very good spoiler videos for this, top 10 scenes and characters rank. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of those videos. And yeah, that'll be it for this video. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your day. And this is James.